All right, so tonight, we're not just reading a chapter. We're going to walk through a single, world-altering night, moment by moment. The goal here is to break down every single verse of Exodus 12 in a way that's, well, pretty much impossible to forget. We're going to build this story piece by piece, almost like a movie. Okay, let's dive right in. We have to start with a divine threat that just hangs over this entire story. Verse 12. This is the engine that drives everything. I mean, imagine a divine voice, booming, not necessarily with rage, but with this cold, absolute certainty. God declares that he, personally, will walk through Egypt and execute a final, devastating judgment. And it's not just against every firstborn, but against the very gods of Egypt themselves. So right away, you know this isn't just another plague. This is a divine showdown. So, with that promise of absolute destruction just looming in the air, you have to ask, how do you survive a night like that? Well, the answer comes in a series of incredibly precise life or death instructions given directly to Moses and Aaron. Okay, verse 1. The Lord speaks to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. I want you to picture a spotlight just hitting these two men, surrounded by the oppressive darkness of a slave nation. Then, verse 2. And this is wild. The very first command is that time itself is being reset. Imagine taking an old, tattered calendar and just setting it on fire, watching the pages curl into ash. And then, out of those flames, a brand new clean scroll emerges. God says, this month, this is now the beginning. It's year one, a complete and total reset for his people. Now we get to the protocol, the step-by-step guide to survival. Verse 3, on the 10th day of this brand new month, every family has to select a lamb. You can just see a father and his son walking through a flock, pointing to one specific animal. Verse 4 clarifies this. What if your household is too small? Well, you join up with your neighbor. You can see two families shaking hands, agreeing to share this crucial task. And verse 5 gives the qualifications. The lamb must be a male, 1-year-old, and without a single blemish. Think of a slow-motion close-up of a perfect, flawless lamb. Now, verse 6 is a two-parter. First, they have to keep this lamb inside their home until the 14th day. Can you imagine a child petting this little lamb inside their house for 4 days? Then, at twilight, the entire community sacrifices their lambs all at the same time. Verse 7 gives maybe the most critical instruction of all. Take some of the blood and paint it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel. That's the top part of the frame. The visual is just so stark. A hand using a simple branch, painting a vivid red mark of protection on the home. Verse 8 describes the meal. Roast the lamb over a fire and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Think about the smells. Fire-roasted meat, the taste of flat, cracker-like bread, and the sharp bitterness of the herbs. A taste that would instantly remind them of their bitter slavery. And verse 9 is super specific. Roasted whole, head, legs, and all. You can't boil it, you can't eat it raw. And finally, verse 10. Let nothing be left over till the morning. You can just see the sun rising as a family burns the last few scraps, leaving absolutely no trace behind. Every single step is precise. Verse 11 tells us how they had to eat. And listen, this is not a relaxed family dinner. Picture a family standing, not sitting down. Their waists are belted, they're ready for a journey. Their sandals are already strapped to their feet. They're holding their travel staff in their hand. And they are eating quickly, in haste, like sprinters on the starting blocks, just waiting for that signal that's going to launch them into freedom. And here it is, the reason for all of it. Verse 13 explains the name, the Passover. God promises, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Just imagine a dark, terrifying force moving down an Egyptian street, a destroyer visiting every single home. But when it comes to a house that's marked with that simple red symbol of obedience, it literally passes over, leaving the family inside completely unharmed. The blood is the sign. It's what separates life from death. Now, this whole thing isn't meant to be a one-and-done event. No way. Verse 14 declares this day will be a memorial, a feast to be kept throughout all generations. Verses 15 through 20 lay out the rules. For 7 days, you have to eat unleavened bread. You can just picture a family on this frantic search, sweeping every last crumb of leavened bread out of their house, a real physical cleansing. And the penalty for eating leavened? To be cut off from Israel. This is serious. This act of remembering the haste of their departure is now woven right into the fabric of their nation, forever. So the divine command has been given. Now the focus shifts to the human response. How are the people going to react to these incredible and, frankly, kind of strange instructions? Verse 21. Moses calls for all the elders of Israel. Picture him standing before all the leaders, relaying this life or death plan. In verse 22, he gives them a specific tool, a bunch of hyssop, which is a common bushy herb, to apply the blood.
Then comes the command, and a critical warning in verse 23. Once that mark is made, and the Lord passes through, no one, and he means no one, is to go out their door until morning. You lock the door, you trust the sign, and you wait.
Let's just pause and feel the tension build on this timeline. For 4 days, from the 10th to the 14th, that lamb, the symbol of their salvation, is living with them. Then in a single evening, it all happens: the sacrifice, the marking of the doors, the hasty meal, and then the long, dark, tense night of waiting behind a locked door, just hoping and trusting that the morning will bring safety. And this whole thing is built to last. Verses 25 through 27 are all about the future. Moses tells them, hey, when you're in the promised land and your kids ask you, what does this whole ceremony mean? You will have the answer. You'll tell them the story of this night. You can just see a father, years from now, pointing to this ritual and explaining to his child how God spared their family. And what's the people's response to all this? Verse 28 is so simple and powerful. The people of Israel did so. As the Lord commanded, so they did. They bow their heads, they worship, and then they get to work. The instructions have been followed. The doors are marked. The families are hidden safely inside. The entire nation holds its breath. And the clock, it just keeps ticking toward midnight.
Verse 29. The moment arrives. At midnight. There's no giant thunderclap, no huge spectacle, just a silent, swift fulfillment of God's word. The Lord struck down every firstborn in the land of Egypt. I mean, just picture a montage. A light goes out in Pharaoh's palace over his son's bed. A light goes out in the home of the lowest servant. A light even goes out in the barn over the firstborn of the cattle. Absolutely no one is spared. And then, verse 30 gives us the sound that just shatters the silence. A great cry rises across all of Egypt. It's the sound of a nation's heart breaking all at once. Picture an aerial view of the land, with cries of grief just erupting from every single Egyptian home. And contrast that with the silent, safe, protected homes of the Israelites.
Pharaoh's will is finally, completely broken. Verse 31, he summons Moses and Aaron in the dead of night. Just picture him, disheveled, defeated, shouting, "Go, worship your Lord, and bless me also." Verses 32 and 33 showed the panic just spreading like wildfire. The Egyptian people are now begging the Israelites to leave, terrified they're all gonna die. And verse 34 gives us that unforgettable image of haste, the Israelites grabbing their dough before it's even had a chance to rise, wrapping their kneading bowls in their cloaks and just slinging them over their shoulders as they run out the door. Now let's try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this moment. Verse 37 gives us a number, about 600,000 men on foot. And get this, that's not even counting women and children. We're talking about a nation on the move, likely millions strong. Imagine a camera pulling way, way back to reveal a literal river of people, with all their flocks and herds just flowing out of the city of Ramses and into the dark desert. It's staggering. And verses 40 and 41 put this single night into its massive historical context. 430 years. Just imagine a rapid montage of generations being born, living their entire lives, and dying as slaves in Egypt. And the text says that at the end of 430 years, to the very day, the armies of the Lord marched out. All of that history, all of that suffering culminates in this one single decisive moment of freedom. So they're free. But they're not just a crowd of refugees running away. In the final verses of the chapter, God immediately begins to forge their new identity, with new laws that are centered on the very meal that just saved them. Verses 43 through 49 lay out the rules for who gets to share in the sacred meal. And what's really interesting here is that it's all about commitment, not just about bloodline. A temporary visitor or a hired hand, they're forbidden. But verse 44 says a slave who is bought and circumcised can eat. And verse 48 says a stranger who wants to join the community and undergo circumcision can eat. The crucial point is this: joining this community and sharing in its defining meal is open to anyone who is willing to enter into the covenant. And the chapter wraps up in verse 51, powerfully restating what just happened. God brought them out of Egypt according to their armies. So the final image isn't of a disorganized mob of fleeing slaves. No, it's of a structured, organized people, liberated and marshaled by God himself, marching together toward their destiny.
So we've walked through it, verse by verse, one night of terror, of obedience, and of miraculous deliverance that became the bedrock memory for an entire people. Their calendar, their laws, their very identity, it was all forged in the fire of this one night. And it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. What does it truly mean when a shared memory, a single story, becomes the foundational identity of a nation?